Hello everyone, this is a listening gap activity for part 1 from Eden to Cajamarca, chapters 1, 2, and 3, and of course before that the prologue. Okay, so Diamond begins his text with a story that illustrates his main question. When Diamond was working as a biologist in New Guinea, he had a meeting with a politician named Yali. Yali had impressive charisma, energy, and intelligence, even though he had not been educated beyond high school. As they talked, Yali asked Diamond why white people had managed to develop so many goods, tools, and weapons that they brought to New Guinea, whereas local people had not developed the same technology. This is the central dilemma Diamond's book deals with. Why did wealth and power become distributed in the way they are today, rather than in some different pattern? For example, why were Native Americans, Africans, or Aboriginal Australians not the ones who killed Europeans and Asians? Diamond's text addresses this question by tracing human development and the differing rates at which it proceeded on different continents. In order to explain why modern inequalities exist, Diamond begins before AD 1500, when technological and political differences already existed. In the prologue, Diamond explains why the topic is important. His question is interesting not only to academics. His research has concern for modern politics. The inequalities that first arose through the different trajectories of human development Diamond studies still have consequences today. Much of Africa now struggles with colonial legacies. It remains poorer and less developed than non-colonized places. Although the West now rejects obvious racism, many people still accept racist explanations for human development. For example, some people assume that white colonists and immigrants were biologically superior to indigenous populations since they were able to kill them. Proving these people wrong is the most important driving force of Diamond's book. The groundbreaking explanation Diamond presents in his book is that history followed different courses for different people, not because of biological differences among them, but because of differences in their environments. He explains that biological explanations don't make sense, since many indigenous peoples today show greater intelligence than Westerners do. They tend to be quicker to learn because natural selection has prompted more genes for intelligence in societies where only the most intelligent could survive their difficult hunter-gatherer lifestyle, and more clever because they do not have passive entertainment like TV, but must instead stay active all day. Diamond's book asks why the genetically inferior Eurasians were able to subjugate these people. He rejects explanations that point to differences in weather, irrigation systems, or immediate factors like guns, diseases, and steel tools. Instead, he looks for a new, more complete and accurate explanation. His book looks at new science from fields such as genetics, molecular biology, linguistics, and archaeology in order to provide an updated look at human history. Diamond also admits, however, that some people may take offense at his environmental explanation for the differences between societies. Some people might think that advanced societies were somehow destined, because of their environment, to dominate the less advanced ones. But Diamond argues that interpretations of a historical explanation are separate from an explanation itself. His question does not contain a value judgment. Other people might object that Diamond's question provides a Eurocentric approach to history, meaning it glorifies the status of Western Europeans. In fact, Diamond's answer will actually show how European civilization borrowed heavily from other people's earlier civilizations. Finally, Diamond also responds to those who believe that using phrases like the rise of civilization implies that civilization is good while tribal hunter-gatherer lifestyles are bad. Diamond does not want to judge one type of society as better than another. He simply wants to understand how the two forms of society came to be. Part 1 of the book identifies the immediate, proximate causes of Eurasian dominance. Chapter 1 provides a broad overview of human evolution and history from the time of apes until the end of the last ice age. It also traces the spread of humans from their origins in Africa to other continents and shows that human development had a head start on certain continents. Evolving from apes, modern humans originated in Africa, then migrated to other parts of the world about 500,000 years ago. However, it is impossible to say for sure when the evolution process and the migration started. What anthropologists call the Great Leap Forward took place almost 50,000 years ago when humanity invented new tools, built cities, and even created art. Then humans invented ships and traveled to distant lands they could not reach before that point, such as Australia and, eventually, the Americas. The first settlers populated Eurasia and then moved to Australia and America somewhere around 14,000 years ago. Diamond supports the view that humans were the reason why some species went extinct. As humans colonized a new continent, mass extinctions would occur on that continent. This is probably because existing animal species were not used to humans and were therefore not afraid of them, and they were easy to hunt. The extinction of large wild animals is notable, especially in the Americas, Australia, and New Guinea, where it could explain why native peoples did not have domestic animals and therefore did not develop agriculture. Some parts of the world, such as Australia and the Americas, remained unpopulated until fairly recently. Some historians believe this could explain the slower technological and agriculture development that occurred in those areas. But Diamond points out that the earliest humans were in Africa, which should have given this continent an advantage. Nevertheless, Africa today remains less developed than North America. This raises another question. Why were Eurasian societies the ones that developed human societies most quickly, even though this would have been impossible to predict at the time of the Great Leap Forward? Chapter 2 looks more closely at how the environments of different continents affected human development. It starts from smaller scale examples in order to find general patterns. The Polynesian Islands make a good case study for explaining how societies that started from the same point of development eventually diverged based on environmental factors. In particular, it shows why some societies remained hunter-gatherers and some turned to agriculture to survive. Diamond begins with the specific example of the aggressive and technologically advanced Maori people taking over the peaceful and less advanced Moriori. In Polynesia, the same group of people populated many islands around the same time. But because some islands were not fertile, the people there went back to being hunter-gatherers. They had to cooperate more among themselves in order to share food, divide tasks, and survive. Those people who lived on the farmable islands developed agriculture and went on to fight amongst themselves over land. They also had enough surplus resources to have more free time, which allowed them to develop complex political structures and hierarchies. For example, they were more likely to have soldiers, politicians, and craftsmen. The islands that could provide better food became denser and more populated, which meant they could develop more complex organization and technology. The environmental differences between one island and the other thus influenced the way the tribes developed. Though in the beginning they were all the same, they developed different social organizations because of their differing resources. These categories of cultural difference within Polynesia are the same categories that developed everywhere else in the world. In all parts of the world, environmental differences are what created differences in how human societies operated. The third chapter then focuses on the collisions between different populations from different continents. Diamond uses a specific example to illustrate larger patterns. Diamond describes the capture of Incan Emperor Atahualpa by Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro in 1532. Pizarro was able to capture Atahualpa and defeat the Incan forces, even though his soldiers were greatly outnumbered by Incan soldiers. The crucial question this raises is why the Spanish were able to travel to Peru and defeat Atahualpa instead of the other way around. The answer depends on a number of factors: a writing system, new germs, centralized politics, and advanced weapons. Writing allowed the Spanish to plan ahead. On the other hand, the Incas did not know what to expect from the Spanish. When the Spanish first arrived, they brought germs the Incas were not used to, which were able to spread and kill many Incas. Centralized political organization in Spain allowed people to finance, build, staff, and equip ships to travel to Peru, and Spanish horses and armor allowed fewer Spanish soldiers to kill a large number of Incas. The chapter concludes that Spanish germs, horses, literacy, political organization, and technology allowed their small forces to defeat Atahualpa's much larger forces. The third chapter thus summarizes the proximate factors that explain how Europeans were able to colonize the New World, and not the other way around. They are the same factors listed in the title of the book, which is an extremely short summary. Military technology, infectious diseases, maritime technology, centralized political organization, and writing are important to keep in mind as the biggest immediate reasons for European domination of the world. However, Diamond's book also tries to explain how these factors started in the first place. The book not only tries to identify proximate causation, but also ultimate causation. For the rest of the book, Diamond will explain how guns, germs, and steel came to exist in certain societies and not in others.